Welcome to today's lesson, dividing whole numbers by decimals. Today, you are going to learn a strategy of multiplying by powers of 10 to divide whole numbers by decimals. Let's go ahead and get started. We are going to begin today by dividing 16 wholes by 4 tenths. 16 is our dividend because it's the number we are dividing, and 4 tenths is our divisor because it's the number we're dividing our dividend by. Now, our first step when approaching this problem is to look at our divisor and notice that we have a decimal. We don't want to have a decimal in our divisor, so we need to change this into a whole number. In order to do that, all we have to do is multiply it by a power of 10. That means we're going to move our decimal place over one place value, or multiply it times 10, until 4 tenths becomes a whole number. By multiplying 4 tenths times 10, we turn it into 4 wholes. But remember, just because we change our divisor doesn't mean we can leave our dividend. Since we multiplied our divisor by 10, we also have to multiply our dividend by 10. So we need to move our decimal and our dividend over one place value as well. But wait, where's our decimal in 16 wholes? Don't forget that your decimal separates your whole numbers from your parts of a whole. So when you have 16 wholes, you don't always write it with a decimal value next to it, as long as it's just 16 wholes without parts of a whole behind it. So now we need to move our decimal value over one place value to show that we're also multiplying our dividend times 10. This is going to give us a value of 160. Now we have a completely new problem to complete. How many times can 4 go into 1? Since 4 is greater than 1, we put a 0 as a placeholder and move on to our next place value. 4 can go into 16 4 whole times. 4 times 4 equals 16, and when I subtract out, that gives me 0. Now I have to bring down my last place value. 4 can't go into 0. It goes in 0 times. 4 times 0 equals 0. And I can subtract out my problem. Now, it's very important that we go to the last place value and that you don't leave this spot blank, even though it has a value of 0. It's keeping our 4 in the tenths place. So 4 tenths divided by 16 equals 40 wholes. Let's try a word problem together. Maxwell has $5 in dimes. How many dimes does he have? Well, let's start by writing out our problem. We know our dividend is going to be 5 wholes. So I'm going to write 5 wholes for my dividend. And now I need to figure out my divisor. I know my divisor is going to be the value of 1 dime. A dime is 10 cents, or 1/10 of a dollar. So my divisor is going to be 1/10. To approach this problem, my first step is to change my divisor into a whole number. In order to do that, I'm going to move my decimal value over one place value, which means I'm multiplying it times 10. If I multiply my divisor by 10, I also have to multiply my dividend by 10. 5 times 10 equals 50. Now I'm going to rewrite this problem just to stay organized. So I have 50 divided by 1. We know that any number divided by itself is going to be that number. So 50 divided by 1 equals 50. That means that Maxwell has 50 dimes, and that's the value of $5. Let's try another practice problem together. What is 19 wholes divided by 5 hundredths? Remember, our first step is to look at our divisor and identify our decimal. We need to change 5 hundredths into a whole number. To do that, we are going to move our decimal over 1, 2 place values, which means we are multiplying by 100. But wait, why didn't we multiply by 10? I know that we multiplied by 10 last time, but that's because we only moved our decimal over one place value, which has a value of 10. But we had to move over 2 place values, which means we had to multiply times 10 twice. 10 times 10 equals 100. So that means in order to change 5 hundredths into a whole number, we have to multiply it by 100. Now remember, since we multiplied our divisor by 100, we also have to multiply our dividend by 100. That means taking our place value and moving it over 2 places. 1, 2. So I'm going to rewrite this problem to make sure that we can stay organized. We are now going to be dividing 1,900 divided by our whole number, 5. 5 can't go into 1 because it's greater than 1, so we put a 0 as a placeholder and move on to our next place value. 5 can go into 19 3 whole times. 5 times 3 equals 15, and when I subtract out, that gives me a remainder of 4. Now I'm ready to bring down my next place value. 5 can go into 40 8 whole times. 5 times 8 equals 40, and when I subtract out, that gives me a remainder of 0. I'm not finished yet though because I still have one more place value that I need to make sure that I bring down. 5 is greater than 0, which means it can go in 0 times. 5 times 0 equals 0, and I have now completed my problem. So 19 wholes divided by 5 hundredths equals 380 wholes. Susie completed the problem above. Her teacher told her that there was an error. Can you find her mistake? Let's walk through it together. She started by dividing 24 wholes by 2 hundredths. She moved her decimal value over 1, 2 places, which is multiplying it by 100. And she also multiplied 24 wholes by 100, moving the decimal value over 1, 2 places. She rewrote her problem as 2,400 divided by 2. So far, it looks great. Let's see if she made an error with her division. 2 can go into 2 one time. 2 times 1 equals 2. She subtracted out, then brought down her 4. 2 times 2 equals 4. She subtracted out, and she didn't bring down her next place value. She must have thought she was finished because she had zeroed out this place value. Let's go ahead and finish it for her. We need to bring down our remaining place values. So let's bring down 0. 2 is greater than 0, so it's going to go in 0 times. 2 times 0 equals 0, and when I subtract out, that gives me 0. Now my last place value is also a 0, so we know that our final digit in our quotient is going to be 0. So 2,400 divided by 2 equals 1,200. That's also the same answer to this problem. 24 wholes divided by 2 hundredths equals 1,200. So we found her mistake. She just forgot to complete the rest of the problem with her remaining place values. Let's take a moment to review what you have learned in today's lesson. When you're trying to divide a whole number by a decimal, your first step is to identify the place value of your decimal and turn your decimal into a whole number. In order to do that, you're going to need to move your decimal value to the right. Since we only have to move our decimal value over one place value, we're multiplying by 10. Since you multiplied your divisor by 10, you also have to multiply your dividend by 10. So let's go ahead and rewrite this problem to stay organized. We are going to be dividing 180 by the whole number 6. Now you're going to carry out your division normally. 6 can't go into 1 because it's greater than 1, so you put a 0 as a placeholder and move to your next place value. 6 can go into 18 3 whole times. 6 times 3 equals 18, and when I subtract out, that gives me a value of 0. I'm not finished yet though because I still have one more place value to bring down. 6 goes into 0 times. 6 times 0 equals 0, and I have now completed my problem. So 18 wholes divided by 6 tenths equals 30 wholes.